gift of one-liners and you've got the curse of curves.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Bands the Scene Forgot, a new scripted segment on my channel that I'll be using to talk about, well, bands that the scene forgot, and in more detail than pretty much anybody else on the internet, I might add. When I say this, I mean that I'll be talking about scene bands that were once commercially successful, whether mainstream or otherwise, but fell from grace quite heavily. And let me tell you, there are a lot of them to get through. In today's inaugural episode, we'll be talking about Cute Is What We Aim For, a band that came to a brief stint of emo pop fame after their song The Curse of Curves received significant alternative rock radio play. Cute Is What We Aim For were and still remain a divisive band among the few people who still talk about them, as many believe them to have been a prime example of the superficial MySpace mall punk that flooded the 2000s. But before we talk about that, we should talk about where this band started, as you'll find that this group is far from the industry plant they've been made out to be. Cute Is What We Aim For formed in January of 2005 in Buffalo, New York, and was formed by a group of childhood friends, still in their mid-teens. The classic backstory for an emo band. Shant Hashikian, Jeff Sum, Fred Climato, and Rob Nice were the founding members, and hold the hell up. Why did this band consist only of people with hard to pronounce names? Geez, as if the scene trend of obnoxiously long song titles wasn't bad enough. Okay, really though, no offense meant. Hashikian was the lead vocalist, Climato was the bassist, Sum was the guitarist, and Nice was on drums, although he was soon replaced by Tom Falcone. A very standard lineup. 4 members, 4 instruments. This did not remain the case, however, as Cute Is What We Aim For would go on to become infamous for its endless lineup changes, a total of 20 people having been in the band at some point, with Hashikian as the only consistent member, alongside Sum and Falcone to a lesser extent. Despite this, the first year of the band was much like the earliest lineup. Simple. They wrote songs, played shows at local venues, and uploaded demos to MySpace and Pure Sound, the homes of much of the early and mid-2000s music scene. Within a few months, the band began to gain traction, as the street team of Hawthorne Heights, a band of quite significant prominence within the scene at the time, promoted their music. Jeff Sum actually attributed much of the band's early popularity to that boost, as it quickly garnered the attention of labels. Despite this, evading the industry plant trap that far too many bands fall into, the group declined most advances, instead choosing to tour and hone their craft, until finally, in November, they signed a record deal with Scene Titans fueled by ramen. Soon afterwards, the band released their debut album, The Same Old Blood Rush with a New Touch, and alongside it, a music video and lead single in the form of The Curse of Curves. The first thing that jumps out to me about this band and this album is that their first real single ever managed to receive significant airplay. Bands like The Starting Line, Fall Out Boy, and especially Panic at the Disco had achieved early successes with their first singles previously, but The Curse of Curves was a genuine hit record, at least in the alternative community. Much like those previous bands, Cute Is What We Aim For did not taste significant chart position success with their debut single. However, they did experience a tremendous amount of radio airplay. When I say that, I mean that when you look at how Grand Theft Autumn or Best of Me performed upon release, you'll find that neither song experienced all too significant radio airplay, instead just traveling based on old-fashioned album sales and eventually becoming staples of each band's catalog, only then making their way to radio. The Curse of Curves did not share this distinction. It was and has remained Cute Is What We Aim For's most popular single by a country mile, sporting 35 million plays on Spotify. Of course, the biggest question you might ask is, why? Well, probably because this song kicks ass! The other interesting thing about Cute Is What We Aim For is that they could actually play their damn instruments, a unique trait in the scene at the time. Emo pop had a history of bands that sucked live up till this point, especially regarding most acts who just released their debuts. Hell, in the 90s, Blink-182 were famously bad at performing live. It's just a sort of trademark of playing pop punk. Cute Is What We Aim For was different because they'd spent their whole pre-signing life, as short as it was, grinding out shows, recording demos, and just making music. The result was a song far more dynamic than most pop punk work floating around at the time. The opening lyrics of the song are iconic. I've got the gift of one-liners, and you've got the curse of curves.
I've got the gift of one-liners and you've got the curse of curves.
Does anything scream 2006 more than that? And Chant's voice sounds excellent, something that can be stated regarding the whole album. Furthermore, despite the instrumental simplicity of the song, there are some relatively complex vocal harmonies that occur later in the song, as well as a not-so-simple bridge segment. Put bluntly, the song was just good, and sometimes that's enough to make a band big. So, what killed them? The problem is that when you get big off of quality alone, you have to keep making good music afterwards if you want to keep your fan base. Cute Is What We Aim For's debut album is, all in all, an underrated classic of the early 2000s emo pop scene, and I will stand by that opinion, even if contemporary critics would have disagreed with me. To date, it sold over 200,000 copies, and with bangers like Teasing to Please and There's a Class for This, alongside the obvious Curse of Curves, it's clear why. But the album lacked lyrical complexity. While the band were tight and well produced, they weren't quite deep enough to be able to maintain their success without growing, and the reality is, they didn't grow that much. 2 years after their debut, in 2008, Cute Is What We Aim For released Rotation, an album which, sales-wise, actually did better than the same old Blood Rush, debuting at number 21 on the Billboard 200 album chart, and selling something to the tune of over 230,000 copies across its lifetime. However, it lacked the same powerbomb of a lead single that the band's debut had possessed, opening with the softer and generally less catchy Practice Makes Perfect. Many of those sales were from fans who already existed, not new ones, and unfortunately, soon after the album came out, lots of those fans were leaving.
So sweet, I can hardly speak to decide.
The scene as we'd understood it was kind of dying at the time, with flagship bands like Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance having either broken up or shifted their sound drastically. Without the substance, or rather the promised potential that their debut had showcased, Cute Is What We Aim For was inevitably destined to fade into the waves of obscurity.
Language is telling me that I'm not to blame. Practice makes perfect.
Jeff Sum and Tom Falcone also left around the release of the second album, leading to the great shuffle of members that ensued across the band's next tour. Unfortunately, this album would be their last. In response to declining attendance at shows and a growing strain between himself and other band members, Sean Hashikian called it quits in 2009, before reforming the band in 2010, before again breaking up after a few years of touring in 2013. It was only after yet another 3 years of absence that the band got back together with its most famous lineup at the core. But since then, the band have relegated themselves to touring and releasing songs independently, having not been signed since 2013 and no news of a third full-length emerging. In conclusion, Cute Is What We Aim For are, well, a great example of something we're going to see a lot of on this show. A band that simply wasn't up to the standard an emo pop act needed to live by going into the 2010s, but that isn't a mark against them. Their debut and even some of their second album are excellent examples of some of the best music to come out of the Warped Tour emo pop sound that defined the 2000s, and if you ever have the chance to catch them live, I would wholly recommend it. Chant is an amazing, distinct vocalist, and their performances as a group are energetic and enjoyable. Furthermore, while much of the mass music audience that they used to capture has abandoned them, a number of currently large acts like Neck Deep have named them as major influences, with Ben Barlow often citing Sean Hashikian's vocal delivery as an inspiration on his own. When Neck Deep, arguably the best and inarguably the biggest contemporary pop-punk act of the last decade, cite you as an influence, you know you've made some damn good music. So, while many people may display disdain for Cute Is What We Aim For, I absolutely recommend their early output. It might not be lyrically deep or the most complex work instrumentally, but it absolutely deserves its place in the history of scene music, and writing the band off as just another pop-punk act is a mistake you'll regret. With that said, thank you all for watching. I've been Harry Phillips, and this has been Bands the Scene Forgot. I hope you all enjoyed the new format. I know it's not exactly standard, and this channel is not one where I've posted anything scripted previously, but frankly, I wanted to try it out, and I think you guys will enjoy the stuff I have coming up. Furthermore, the music isn't gone. I'm still making music, I'm still posting it here, and my band Barrington is releasing their first single, Whites, which there is a demo of on this channel. Go check it out, please. Link in the description. And we're going to be filming a music video for it, releasing it on Spotify, Apple Music, everything, sometime in the next month or two. And there will be a channel just for Barrington. So, yeah, with that said, thank you all for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below if you have any suggestions for what to talk about in the next episodes. And, yeah, talk to you all later.
Yeah, I know that one. And so typically soft, set back and perfectly taught, tough and learned, so perfectly taught.